this computer. I like her little voice. Okay, there we go. Share. Okay, does somebody have Proverbs chapter 3 for us?
I can go ahead and do that.
Thank you.
All right.
Good and loud.
Yes. My son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart, for they will prolong your life many years and bring you prosperity. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline, and do not resent his rebuke, because the Lord disciplines those he loves. As a father, the son he delights in. Blessed is the man who finds wisdom, and the man who gains understanding. For she is more profitable than silver, and yields better returns than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, and in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who embrace her. Those who lay hold of her will be blessed. By wisdom the Lord laid the earth's foundations. By understanding he set the heavens in place. By his knowledge the deep were divided, and the clouds let drop the dew. My son, preserve sound judgment and discernment. Do not let them out of your sight. They will be life for you, an ornament to grace your neck. Then you will go on your way in safety, and your foot will not stumble. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Have no fear of sudden disaster or the ruin that overtakes the wicked. For the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being snared. Do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it is in your power to act. Do not say to your neighbor, come back tomorrow, or come back later, I'll give it tomorrow, when now you have it with you. Do not plot harm against your neighbor who lives trustfully near you. Do not accuse a man for no reason when he has done you no harm. Do not envy a violent man or choose any of his ways, for the Lord detests a perverse man, but takes the upright into his confidence. The Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the home of the righteousness. He mocks proud mockers, but gives grace to the humble. The wise inherit honor, but fools he holds up to shame. And that's right. Chapter 3.
Thank you for reading for us, Kyle. Appreciate that. Yeah, okay. Sure. So this is going to be how we're going to do a lot of the later chapters. Now, some of the chapters coming up will break down into sections again. There's different kinds of poetry. Hold on a second. There's different kinds of poetry. Some of it is story. We'll very much see when we get to the next few chapters and it talks about sexual morality and the immoral woman. You'll see some stories in it as well. But a lot of the poetry here is going to seem like random things thrown together. So one of my professors, Dan Dyke, he was explaining this to me, that there was a central point, and it'll go out to like idea number 1, back to the point, 2 to the point, and then maybe to idea 8, and then back to the point, and then 4, and back to the point, and it'll seem random in how it's laid out, but in reality, they're all related thoughts. In other words, the only way you can truly understand the absolute depth of a proverb is when you understand it not by itself. So do some of these proverbs stand alone? Yeah, sure. But when you understand it in the context of all the other related things in the chapter, it gives you a fuller sense of it. And that's the value of studying the way we're going to study. And so we haven't really done it that much yet since we started the class, because chapter 1 and chapter 2 are really not divided up that way. They're paragraphs with continual ideas. But chapter 3 is where we get our first taste of what seems like random proverbs, okay, that aren't random. And I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay, so you got your notes there, right? Flipping your notes to chapter 3. And you can write stuff down as we go, as you want any extra notes. By the way, when we talk about things from Proverbs, we take an exam, there won't be anything on your exam, really, that's not in your notes, with the exception of the chiasm and the bifid and the Jewish poetry stuff, which I am still going to get you some notes on that you will eventually have. I don't got it done yet because I had an exciting weekend. Idea number 1 from Proverbs chapter 3 that I identified is that wisdom can be lost. Okay, we want to gain it, but here's another thing, is it can be lost. And why? Because it's not intrinsic. It's not something you're born with. It's not related to your IQ. You are not born wise. You are born foolish. We'll read later in Proverbs, folly is found in the heart of a child. You were born with foolishness, and you have to add wisdom. You have to seek wisdom. You have to find wisdom. It's not something that you're just, I'm just naturally wise. Nope. No, you have to be given wisdom, and as we see in the life of Solomon, who wrote this book, it can be lost. You can have wisdom and then stop using it. And so I want you to see that in several places throughout this chapter, it keeps coming back to the idea in these Proverbs that wisdom can be lost. Number 1, it says it can be forgotten in verse 1. So you don't forget. Just because you know it now doesn't mean you'll know it 10 years from now. I've been going back, guys, listening to my Proverbs lectures from 2012. And I'll probably go and listen again to my ones from 2018. And I'm listening, I'm like, oh, that's good. Oh, it's me. I'm teaching myself. I've forgotten stuff since then. Now, some of the stuff on Proverbs I remember, of course, much of it. But some of it, there are a few little nuggets. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's good. I forgot that. Yeah. If you don't keep reviewing stuff, you'll forget it. The old saying is, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And the ability to sing, the ability to play a sport, any kind of activity, the skills that you get to be expert can be lost. So one of the things about finding wisdom is you've got to not only work to find it, you've got to develop the habits, skills, and traits that keep it. That's why we don't ever stop reading our Bible. That's why we never go, well, I read the Bible cover to cover, I guess I'm done. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to keep back and again. That's why you take the Lord's Supper every week. That's why we're back to church regularly. That's why we read. That's why even the best football players practice the fundamentals. In fact, practicing the fundamentals is the best way to become a great football player or any other thing. So it can be lost. Verse 1, and they must be kept in your heart. Okay, so now I understand that God makes his appeal to people through logic. I mean, I'm the one always teaching that. I understand that God gives information and that faith is built on facts. I understand that. But if there is not an emotional love and connection once you realize the facts, then there's something wrong in your relationship with God. What is the greatest commandment, guys? to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Every part of you, the emotional part of you, the intellectual part of you, the spiritual part of you, the physical part of you, every part of you needs to be loving God. And you need to keep these and treasure them. They need to have emotional value to you. Okay? So if you don't want to lose them, you got to use them. You got to keep it in your heart, and they can leave you. What? Yeah. If you won't obey wisdom and the concepts, they'll be like, peace out. The Bible says this: faith without works is as a body without a spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead. When your spirit leaves your body and your body's dead, what's it do? What's the dead body do that doesn't have a spirit? It rots till it's dirt again. And that's the way faith without works is. And when you don't put into action the wisdom that God has given you, when your faith doesn't have any works, even the works themselves, the beliefs themselves will degrade and be gone. And so if a person will not practice what they preach, soon they won't even believe it anymore. Wisdom will leave you. When you don't live out wisdom, you eventually stop believing it and forget it. And you've seen it. You've seen people who walked in the truth, who had wisdom, and stopped doing it, and then pretty soon they don't believe it, and the next thing you know, they believe just the opposite, and their whole politics and worldview and belief system, and you're like, is this even the same person? How does that happen? It's because if you don't, it's wisdom's like a woman. Remember, we talked about that before. And if you don't love her, she'll leave you. She'll dump your sorry rear and go off and leave you. You have to be faithful to wisdom, or she'll leave you. You need to bind it to you. Verse 3. Okay? You need to tie it up and make it part of your life. One of the things I'm trying to do with making you guys read a chapter of Proverbs a day and write me a little paragraph about one particular proverb that speaks to you. The reason I'm giving that assignment is I'm trying to bind them to you. I'm trying to tie it to your life every day. When I was advised to read a chapter of Proverbs a day, and I started doing that and added that habit to my life, it radically changed my understanding and my insight. You tie it to you. Tie it to you with habits. Tie it to yourself with, things that you're going to do. They're going to add wisdom to your life. You need to write it on your heart. Okay? You need to burn it into you emotionally. What does it mean, write it on your heart? It's talking about memorization. You need to memorize these proverbs and say them. So one of the things my dad was so effective at is that he would memorize, little sleep, little slumber, little folding of the hands, and poverty comes upon you like a thief. And every time he'd be tempted to be lazy or lean back and take it easy, he'd hear that in the back of his ear. And I have the same thing now. There have been times where I'm like, I just want to take a little rest here, and I'll hear little sleep, little slumber, little folding, and I'm like, okay, I need to get up and get going here. Get some coffee and get moving. And those kind of proverbs, when you've hidden them in your heart, will keep you from sin. Isn't that what Psalm 119 said? Thy word will I hide in my heart, that I might not sin against God. Write it in your heart. Ingrain it. That's talking about memorization, or as I like to call it, mesmerization. Mesmerize it, memorize it, burn it into your being. And you need to always acknowledge it. Verse 6. What is it? Are you still there? Said I signed out. Something just came up and said I signed out.
You're good.
I'm still here.
That's
You're good.
whacked. I don't know. Maybe Terry was trying to log in. Excuse me. I'm really sorry. I'm going to cough every once in a while because this blood clot in my left lung produces goo or something that makes me cough. And I apologize. I'm not going to be up to snuff today. Where was it? Okay, you need to acknowledge it. You need to acknowledge wisdom, admit its truthfulness, and Make it a part of your life. And it must be embraced. Just like you hold on to a woman, you got to hold on to wisdom. It has to be held, embraced, welcomed in, loved. You've got to hold on to these things. Why? Because you can lose them. You can lose a love and romance if you don't hold the person. You can lose something if you don't hold on to it tight. It's got to be, it can be forgotten. Therefore, you got to put it in your heart, or to leave you. You got to bind it to yourself. You got to memorize it. You got to acknowledge it. This is the truth. This is the reality. And you got to embrace it. And it must be preserved. Okay, so you got to once you gain this wisdom, you've got to preserve it and not let anything take you away from it. And remember, wisdom isn't just something you believe. Wisdom is something you do. Okay? And so you've got to preserve your habits that you build. So knowing that you should save up for times of need and not spend all your resources and keep a little bit back for troubled times that might happen ahead. That's a piece of wisdom from the book of Proverbs. Knowing that is not wisdom. Doing that is wisdom. Actually taking a portion of your income, every paycheck, and putting it in a savings account and going all Dave Ramsey, not our Dave Ramsey, but the other Dave Ramsey, and saving a portion of your income for the future. That's wisdom. Wisdom is in preserving the habit, the activity, the action. So wisdom is not just believed, wisdom is done. And so that's why you've got to preserve it. Because even if you believe it's true, but you don't do it, you haven't preserved wisdom. You've got to preserve it. And don't let it out of your sight. Verse 21. Never stop reading it. Never stop looking at it. If you're ever in a situation like somebody says, hey, follow me, we're going to go to this restaurant. And you're following this car, you don't know where they're going, you're in a town you don't know, you have no idea. You don't want to lose sight of that car in front of you. Even if a stoplight gets in the way or another car cuts in front or whatever, you don't want to lose sight of who's leading you. And if wisdom's leading you, you don't want to lose sight of it. You want to keep your eye on it. This isn't a book you're going to study once to get your degree for Summit Theological Seminary. If you're wise, this is a book, and wisdom itself, even wisdom beyond the book of Proverbs, is something you're going to set your eye on finding, and you're never going to stop looking. Okay? And if we go back to our woman comparison, you don't ever stop lovingly looking at your wife. You keep your eye on her. Don't go looking at nobody else. And so wisdom can be lost, and wisdom can be beneficial. Look at all the wonderful things wisdom does, according to this chapter. It'll prolong your life many years. Now, we know as Christians that if you use the wisdom of Christ, not only will it prolong your life, but due to resurrection and eternal life, it'll actually make you live forever. So it actually has the ability to give you eternal life spiritually through Christ because he died for us. But even that aside, if you follow the principles of wisdom while you're here, there'll be exceptions. There's some good people that die young. There's murder, or there's, car accidents. There's some things that could happen that are exceptions to the rule. But generally speaking, okay? Generally speaking, a person who lives according to the principles of the book of Proverbs is going to live a lot longer than a person who lives absolutely opposite of the principles of the book of Proverbs. And so it will prolong your life, right? You can go all Star Trek, live long and prosper, because you followed and held to the principles of wisdom. It's beneficial. It brings you prosperity. Now, is it going to make you the wealthiest man in the world? No. But will it make you prosperous so that your needs are met and that you have abundance and you can help others in need? Yeah, yeah. It will make you prosperous. It'll take whatever you're working at and make you the most successful you can be at that. It'll win you favor with God and man. When you follow the principles of wisdom, you can have favor with God. Now, will you have favor with all men? No. There's nothing you can do to have favor with all men. That's impossible. But can you have favor with God? And generally speaking, good people will appreciate you and love you. Yeah. Yeah. I always told my kids, there's nothing you can do to make all the kids at school like you. In fact, if you're too popular, you're doing something wrong. But you can live in such a way with wisdom that the good kids like you, that most kids like you. And the way to win favor with God and with others, long-term, not short-term, long-term, is to follow the principles of wisdom. And you'll have a good name. What's it mean, a good name? Well, I think the name Kendall is really not, it's nothing to do with that. It means your reputation. You'll have a good reputation. And let me tell you guys, the older I get, the more I realize your reputation is more important than money or those kind of things. You will have a good reputation. What good does it do, right? How many of these actors and musicians and movie producers all got canceled? Did they make good movies? Yes. They make good music? Yes. Did they make cool television shows? Yes. But now nobody will hire them because they raped women or abused women or whatever. Their reputation is ruined. What good was all their success when really they're a villain? I mean, you think about Bill Cosby. Nobody had the heart of America and goodwill more than Bill Cosby. When they first accused Bill Cosby of all these things, I would not believe it. I just no, Bill Cosby did not do that. If there'd only been one or two accusers, I'd have been like, no, they're just trying to tear down a good man. But when you've got 20 women all swearing to the same thing, by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every truth is established. Obviously, he's guilty as sin. And here this guy who had this #1 television show for years, did all these cool things, made these amazing comedy sketches. I mean, just all the good and what he had done for the Black community. I mean, Bill Cosby was so influential, and he flushed it all down the toilet. The value of a good name is important. And if you follow wisdom, you'll still have that good name. There's a difference between success and significance. Bill Cosby had success for a while, but his life will be a negative because of those choices he made. It'll make your path straight. So instead of curving and winding all over everywhere and your life being a mess, being blown here and there by every wind of doctrine, instead of being all over the place and having one of the worst characteristics of anything, inconsistency, it'll make your path straight. And a straight path's easier. A straight path doesn't have the trouble and the problems that a crooked path has. You want your path to be straight and flat. You want to go on the highway. And so wisdom will put you on the straight and narrow. And wisdom will bring health to your body. The following the path of wisdom will make your body healthier. Now, do we all eventually die? Yeah. Are there some really good people at a young age randomly die? Sure. Are there exceptions? Yes. But generally speaking, right? Who's going to be healthier in 10 years? The person following the principles of wisdom in Christianity, or the person that's a crack addict? Yeah. The person that's an alcoholic, the person that's doing meth, the person that's overeating, the person that's a glutton, the person that's a drunkard, the person that's going around getting monkeypox. No, if you follow the principles of wisdom that we're going to lay out in this book, it's going to, generally speaking, make you be healthy to live long and prosper, as we said. It'll bring nourishment to your bones. Now, we're going to talk a lot about internal effects of outward sin. One of the things that we discover in the book of Proverbs is that some things are a rotting of the bones. Some things are bad for the heart. And what we've discovered now, what Proverbs taught, 3,000 years ago, we're finding out now medically. If you're stressed and worried and greedy, it's going to affect your heart, and it's going to give you heart problems. If you are the kind of person that holds a grudge and won't forgive, it causes bone degenerative diseases. Your mental and emotional beliefs and actions have effect on your physical being. The physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, those are all connected. And you can't affect one of them without causing problems. You can't harbor bitterness and hatred in your heart and not have negative physical effects on your body. And likewise, you can't be cheerful and happy and forgiving and not release medicinal properties into your body. When you release endorphins and stuff that create health and regeneration and renewal, your mental attitude, your spiritual state, your emotional state very much affect your body. And when you follow the path of wisdom, it sets all of those in alignment with health. And so therefore it's nourishing to your bones. It'll fill your barns and your vats. When you follow the principles of wisdom, you're going to work, you're going to save, you're going to be generous and give, and all of those things are going to bring blessings to you financially. It has financial benefits. Your barn and your vats will be full. Notice it doesn't say your bank account. There's a difference between massive financial wealth and God meeting your needs. What it's saying is you're going to have food in the barn and you're going to have oil in the vat to make food with. You're going to have what you need. It's going to make it so that you have a life of plenty, not of, excess, but of plenty. And it'll also bring God's beneficial discipline. When you follow wisdom and you seek wisdom, God will okay, I'll teach you. And that may include some my thing's acting up here. There we go. That may include some discipline. If you are a child who the parent does not discipline, you are being abused. I remember I'd go into a Walmart and a kid would be acting up and acting terrible, and the mom or the dad wouldn't do anything. I remember my dad would lean over to me and goes, "That's child abuse." It is. It's child abuse to let a kid act that way and not discipline them. And when you start following wisdom, wisdom starts to correct you. Wisdom starts to do things in your life that discipline you and train you and get you in the right mindset. How many of you all seen Karate Kid? The original Karate Kid, right? That's an awesome movie. You remember when Daniel's son says he wants to be trained by Miyagi and talks him into it? Miyagi at first no, only black belt I have is from JCPenney, or whatever. And so he finally starts teaching him. What's he do? He sits him out there waxing his cars. Wax on, wax off, wax on. And then he has him, up and down, working in his, painting his fence. And he's like, finally, Daniel gets mad. Why are you doing this? And then Miyagi does this things where he starts these punches, and he can wax on, wax off. He knows all these movements because all of that hard work was training his body to do these particular movements. It was about training. And did you ever consider that all the hard things in life that God allows you to go through are him training you, for something powerful in the future? And so when you're going through life and it's difficult and it's hard and I laid in the hospital bed with a blood clot and told I might have cancer and all this kind of stuff. And at no point did I go, why, God? Why are you doing this to me? I am a little curious, but I have no doubt there is a reason. The real why question for me is, God, why are you so good to me that you helped me find out about my cancer before it grows to a point that kills me? When other good people, family members who I loved, who were my Uncle Frank, a very godly man, he didn't find out till it's too late. For me, the question is, why are you saving me? Not why is this happening to me? I know perfectly well why there's pain and suffering in this world. I've sinned and we've all sinned and we caused it. Pain's my fault. The question is not why is there pain in the world? The question is, why is God always saving me from it? Why is God always so good to me, pulling me out of the fire? And so what's he trying to teach me? What's the lesson here? What's the benefit? Hebrews says that we should treat all hardship as discipline. Now, sometimes things happen to you and you caused it, you deserved it. Theodore Roosevelt said, if we could kick in the rear end the person that's responsible for most of the problems in our life, we wouldn't be able to sit down for a week. We cause most of our own issues. Sometimes, though, stuff's not our fault. Sometimes we had an abusive parent, wasn't our fault. Sometimes people did things to us, wasn't our fault. Sometimes situations happen, it's not our fault. Sometimes it is. But the Bible says to treat all of it like discipline. Some discipline is punishment. Some discipline is just to train. Sometimes I'm like, all right, kids, you did this wrong with my children. Now you can't do this, that kind of discipline. Sometimes the discipline, they haven't done anything wrong. I'm like, okay, get up. You're going to go mow the yard today. Oh, you're going to do the dishes today. You're going to fold the laundry today. Why do I got it? Because I want you to learn how to do those things and help take care of stuff around here. The discipline was for training, not punishment. And sometimes God allows us to suffer for training, not punishment. That's what was going down with Job. Why was Job punished? What had he done wrong? He didn't do anything wrong. He was the most righteous man on the earth. Then why did God allow that? Training to help us, to help him. Sometimes what we go through is training. And when we're following wisdom, that turns all our problems into pluses. Okay? All the negatives. Now, if a person comes to me that's not a Christian, not following God, not following wisdom, and they're like, this bad thing happened to me, I want to say to him, well, everything turns out for the best in the end. But I can't say that to him because for them, it doesn't. It's kind of like, well, sorry about your luck, sucker. But what I should say to them is, well, if you'll turn to God and to Christ, he'll take that negative and make it a positive, and this can turn out for your good. That's what we ought to say. Because when you're following God, all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. See, when you love God and you're following the way of wisdom, it has benefits. What benefit? Is it turns every difficulty and hardship into a learning moment to make you a better man, a better woman, a better Christian, a better husband, a better wife, a better student, whatever. The awesome thing with wisdom is it has these benefits. It's more profitable than silver and gold and rubies. Why are silver, gold, and rubies so rare? Uh, can't find many of them. They're hard to get out of the ground. That's what makes them valuable. And wisdom has to be mined. Wisdom isn't just laying around. Wisdom has to be mined. You have to look for it, search for it. But when you do, it's more profitable than silver, gold, and rubies. Now, I'm one of these constitutionalist guys who thinks that our money should be gold and silver, like the U.S. Constitution mandates. I wish we followed that part of the Constitution, where all money had to be gold and silver, because then we wouldn't have this incredible, insane inflation that's going on right now. But that aside, the value of even gold and silver, and it's keeping its value, isn't as good as Proverbs. I mean, you talk about, if you get two 1950s dimes, up till 1964, American dimes were made out of 98% silver. When my aunt was in high school, she said gas was 20 cents a gallon. You guys think, man, 20 cents a gallon, I'm paying $4 a gallon, or whatever we're paying, up and down it goes. Gas used to be 20 cents a gallon. Well, those two dimes from the 1950s, if you had two silver dimes, those silver dimes are worth $1.50 to $2.50 a piece, depending on where the dollar's at in relation. You can still take those two dimes, turn them into modern money, and go get a gallon of gas with them. Because the value of gold and silver stays the same, because they're rare. There's not a lot more gold and silver being introduced. Unlike paper money, where they're printing it like it's going out of style, and the more that they print and give away to free to people, the more the value of our dollar goes down. And so paper money is worthless. We'll talk more about that later on in the course, because Proverbs talks about it. But even as valuable at keeping its value and as great as gold and silver are, it's nothing compared to wisdom. How beneficial is it? It's more beneficial than rare treasures that are always worth something. It's more valuable than all other desires. Nothing you desire compares to wisdom. It's more valuable than having a house, lands, popularity, a wife, a girlfriend, a job, whatever. There's nothing you desire, that's more valuable than wisdom. Because can money buy all these things that we've talked about that are already valuable? I mean, look at this. Can money prolong your life? No. Bring lasting prosperity? No. Win favor with God and man? No. Give you a good reputation? No. Lots of rich people have bad reputation. Make your path morally straight? No. Bring health to your body? No. Nourishment to your bones? Emotionally change the way you are to help? No. Fill your barns and vats? Well, maybe you could do that one. And bring God's discipline? No. All the value of wisdom, most of those things can't be bought. Money can't even buy class. Have you ever seen somebody that was a hillbilly that got real rich and designed and built their own house, and it looked like the dumbest castle on earth? I've seen stuff like that where, you can't even buy class. You've seen the Beverly Hillbilly show, right? Money doesn't buy class. It doesn't buy intelligence. It doesn't buy character. It doesn't buy value. It doesn't buy eternal significance. It can't even keep you popular. There's plenty of rich people that are hated. Money is not nearly as valuable. And here's the thing. Money can't buy you wisdom, but wisdom can get you money. Why would, it's kind of like if somebody came to me and said, would you rather have a brand new Ferrari, or would you rather have $1 million? Well, I'd rather have $1 million, because after the government took 500,000 of it, I'd have 500,000 left. I could go buy the Ferrari and still have 300 grand to play with. Which would you rather have? I'd rather have that which can give me everything I need. And the only thing that can do that's wisdom. There's nothing more valuable. There isn't anything that you could spend your time on that's more constructive for your marriage, for your life, for your future, for your career, for your success, for your eternal significance, for your emotional state, your mental state, your spiritual state, your financial state. Any way you look at it, there's nothing you can spend your time on more valuable than wisdom. It is the most valuable thing over all other desires, because it will bring you all your other desires. You want wisdom, and it brings long life, riches, and honor, verse 16. So if you follow the way of wisdom, you're likely to live longer, you're likely to have more money, and you're likely to be honored. If you follow wisdom, it'll lead in paths of peace. Now there's one. Did Elvis have peace in his life? Did Kurt Cobain? You know, do you think you know, I don't know, just name, do you think what's the golf player's name who ruined his life cheating on his wife? Tiger Woods, do you think he has peace? You think Will Smith has peace? These people don't have peace in their heart and their life. They're wealthy, they're successful, top of their game, but they didn't get wisdom, and it didn't lead to a life of peace. You see, you can have peace in the storm. You can have peace in trial. You can have hope in the face of death. You can go right up in death's face and smile, because when you have wisdom, you know you're going to overcome death. You see, it leads in paths of peace, not anxiety, not worry, not fear, not stress. It leads in paths of peace. You want wisdom because its benefits are unmatched. It's a tree of life. And verse 18, what's it mean? It's a tree of life. Somebody turn on your thing and tell me, what's that saying? What was the tree of life? Anybody know?
The tree of life would have given them life forever, would have given them eternal life.
Okay. So in the Garden of Eden, there was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat of that. But there was also a tree called the tree of life.
Mm-hmm.
And the tree of life, when you ate the fruit, well, I don't know, there's something in it that would make it so you wouldn't die. Did you ever read why God said he had to kick him out of the garden? And then he had to put two angels there, two cherubim with flaming swords. I mean, I'm sorry, George Lucas did not invent lightsabers. That's God. It's in Genesis. There's angels with lightsabers outside of the Garden of Eden, not letting Adam and Eve back in, so they can't eat from this tree that gives you eternal life. And so when it says that wisdom is a tree of life, what's it saying? It's saying if you eat the fruit of wisdom, you'll live forever. Now there's a benefit. It is the fountain of youth. It will, even if you die, yet shall you live, Jesus said, if you believe in him. When you follow the path of godly wisdom, it's a tree of life. Why? Because its principles go back to creation, verse 19. Everything God made is based upon wisdom. Now, I want you to really remember this, because it's kind of like if you go up on top of a building and you're like, I believe I can fly, and you jump off, you like fall, pizza pavement, right? Or pavement pizza. Anyway, you're like smushed because you went against some laws of nature, okay? That doesn't work that way. And there are laws that govern everything. That's why Proverbs fits so well with the OT law, the Old Testament law, and Proverbs fits so well with the New Testament. And why Proverbs isn't part of the Old Testament law. Proverbs was not done away with the law. Don't read Proverbs and guess, well, that's Old Testament. No, it's not part of the law of Moses. These are timeless principles based on principles upon which the world was created. The principles of Proverbs were true before the law was given by Moses and after. These are principles on which he created everything. Everything operates that way. That's why there's so many allusions from spiritual things, relational things, metaphysical things, back to physical things. There's so many comparisons. That's why when he's telling you how to be industrious and have a work ethic, he says, consider the ant. He keeps referring to creation in these problems. Why? Because the whole way the world works is hardwired into everything. It's the world's operating system is wisdom. Now, if you get on a computer and you try to run a program that does not work according to the operating system, the program is going to crash. When you write a new program to add to an operating system, it has to go within the guidelines of the operating system. And that's what happens when you live sinfully, when you live against wisdom. You are just setting yourself up to crash. Because if you align yourself with the principles of the world, you'll prosper. But if you go against it, that's why, like, for example, I don't care whether it's talking about a literal seed in a literal plant in literal soil, or whether it's talking about finances in a company investing for a financial future, or whether it's talking about a husband and a wife in their investment in each other in relationships, or whether it's talking about spiritual things in your spiritual life for your eternal life. The fact is true at every level of creation, you're going to reap what you sow. Whatever you plant, that's what you're going to reap. That's a principle in finance, that's a principle in spiritual life, and it's a principle in reality when you plant a literal seed in the literal ground. It's true at every level because that's hardwired into this world. That's the problem with these stupid utopian ideas and the moronic ideas of socialism and communism, is they try to defy the natural order of the world. They try to say, you don't gotta sow, you can just reap off somebody else's sowing and never have to reap yourself. That ain't gonna work. That's not gonna work. There's certain principles that are true that you try to defy them, you're just going to impale yourself on this spear of reality. And the principles of creation are based on wisdom. What did God use to create the world? Wisdom. That's what it says. Verse 19. God used these principles to create it. Therefore, if you want to prosper, succeed, and live, you have to follow these principles of God, because he used his wisdom to make everything. And when you go against the operating system, when you go against the programming of the world at the most fundamental level, you're not going to succeed. It gives safety. Verse 23. One of the benefits of wisdom is it creates safety. Today, people are delusional and try to sacrifice their morality or their rights or their freedom to create these delusions of security that aren't true. But look, it's wisdom that gets safety. Back when we had homes where husbands and wives stayed together and people stayed together for life, and they raised their children and they spanked them and they disciplined them and they followed these principles, and they follow a lot more of the wisdom of the Bible than they do now. Were we safer or were we less safe? Could you leave your house unlocked in the 50s? Could you leave your keys in your car? When I was a kid, kids used to take guns to school in their trucks, and after in the parking lot would show each other guns in the trucks in the parking lot. Try doing that now. Oh, there's all this fear and insecurity. People shooting up. Why? Well, because these kids have been taught all their life they came from animals and they act like animals. They don't have any hope. They don't have any fear of God. Even hellion kids, when I was in school, at least had some fear of God. You know, that today, no one fears God. And so we get what we get. As we walk away from the principles of wisdom, we walk into insecurity. And security doesn't come from a large army or a military. Security doesn't come from any law or any president. It doesn't come from gun control. It doesn't come from mandates. It doesn't come from those kind of things. Security and safety comes from following the principles of wisdom. And when you reject the principles of wisdom, there aren't enough laws, there aren't enough cops, there aren't enough do-gooders, there aren't enough rules, regulations. There isn't enough of anything to keep you safe. Safety comes from wisdom. And until we nationally return to paths of wisdom, it will be unsafe. And that's why a lot of people used to love to come here and immigrate here. It's because it wasn't safe. Why are so many South Americans trying to, people of the South trying to get into this country? Because there's traditionally here been more security. You can keep what you earn. It's a better place. I've got people I know that live in Brazil and they have to have big walls around their house and security and they can't leave. It's insane. They don't have the safety we have. They don't have the justice we have. The police are all corrupt and want bribes. They don't have safety. You can't even drive across Mexico right now because of the cartels. Why? Because they nationally rejected the principles of wisdom. And so you get what you get. And because wisdom gives safety, it also takes away fear. Verse 24. See, when you're wise, we're going to read later that about the paranoia of the wicked and how they're constantly afraid there's a lion in the street. But then there's another proverb that says that the righteous person isn't afraid. They go out like a lion. You're like, rah, because you're not afraid. I'm facing, 2 potentially deadly diseases, and I'm not quaking in my boots in fear at night. Why? Because I trust in God and eternal life. Wisdom takes away fear, and it takes away the fear of disaster. Verse 25. Does that mean that no bad thing will happen to you if you follow wisdom? No. It means when bad things happen, God will be with you and take care of you. You'll weather the storm because you follow the way of wisdom and you store it up in your house, food and supplies. When you have a catastrophe and don't have electric for a couple of weeks, you've still got food to eat. It takes away your fear of disaster because you've prepared for inevitable tragedies that come to us all. It doesn't mean you'll never have trouble. It means you don't fear trouble because God's going to be with you through it and you've prepared for it. It keeps you from ruin. Verse 25. You see, when you follow the way of wisdom, God's with you and protects you, and the principles protect you, and it keeps you from being ruined. And what would have destroyed an ungodly man doesn't destroy you. What would have made everybody else give up, curse God and die, you don't curse God and die. You bless him. Why? Because you have the principles of wisdom guiding you, and it keeps you from ruin. And that gives you confidence. Verse 26. You don't have to go through life insecure, full of fear, full of anxiety. Am I going to get taken care of? Is God going to be with me? You don't have to live like that. Not when you start following the principles of wisdom. It takes away fear and it brings confidence. The wicked, they're full of paranoia. They think everybody and everything's out to get them. They live in constant fear, even when they're not in danger. The Bible says they're afraid. It says the guilty flee when no one pursues. They're afraid when they don't need to be. But not so with the righteous. They're confident. They're bold as a lion. And it keeps your foot from a snare. So the devil and this world and the evil in this world are constantly putting out traps. But if you walk in the way of wisdom, it'll keep you from the snares. It'll help you see, oh, that's a trap, it'll help you see when you're walking into something. It'll give you the wisdom and the insight to know, I shouldn't be hanging with that person. I shouldn't work at that company. I shouldn't be involved in that activity. I shouldn't be going to that Christian conference because they're not very Christian. I shouldn't be involved with that false teacher. I shouldn't marry that person. They're not good for me. I should, it's going to keep you from falling into snares, Wisdom is crying out like Admiral Akbar. It's a trap. He'll let you know when bad things are coming. So that's a benefit of wisdom. It brings blessing on your house. It will not only be a blessing to you if you're wise, it'll be a blessing to your wife, to your kids, to your parents, to your grandkids, everyone in your house. Wisdom is not only a blessing for you, but you think about it. If a guy doesn't follow the way of wisdom and is he drunk, does that affect his kids? If a guy's a lazy louse and won't get a job, does that affect his kids? If a guy's running around drinking, does that affect his kids? If he cheats on his wife all the time, does that affect his kids? If he doesn't have a good reputation, does that affect his kids? Yeah. But if he's a good man and is the flip side of all those things, does that affect his kids? Yeah. So not only is it beneficial to you, it's beneficial to the people you love the most. And it'll cause you to inherit honor. Notice, honor might not come right away. Humility has to come before blessing. Honor is something you gain over time. If you guys think, yeah, I want to be honored right away. No. Honor is built on a life of character and sustained activities. Anybody can be a one-hit wonder, right? There was a girl that won the U.S. Open last year in tennis, and everybody talked about her. Oh, she swept the thing and won the whole thing last year. This year, she went out in the first round. It was a fluke. Now, maybe she'll work hard and come back and build a reputation over time, but she's not, Serena Williams yet. The reason Serena Williams is Serena Williams is because she over time has consistently been good. It's anybody can, pull it off once by accident, but when you sustain it, that's when you gain honor, right? It's when you win again and again and again and again. And then you go, okay, this isn't a fluke. This is the real deal. So we're going to talk about wisdom's qualities when we come back. I've actually gone over by 7 minutes. So let's take a break, and at 2:45, we'll start back up. Okay? 2:45, we will begin again.
Hey, Kendall?
Yeah, who said that?
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had two questions. The first thing is we're recording these videos, right? I'm recording with this recorder. But I was wondering where